They caught her pleasuring herself in the dark. 3 alphas, 1 forbidden omega. They thought punishment would break her. She thought submission would kill her. They were both wrong. The Nightshade brothers weren't seeking obedience. They were claiming their fated sovereign. The moon hung heavy over Nightshade Manor, bloated in silver against a sky the color of old bruises. Lixara Moonshadow pressed her back against silk sheets, breath coming in shallow gasps that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the ache building inside her for 3 weeks straight. 21 days since the bonding ceremony. 21 nights of running, hiding, denying what her body screamed for with every heartbeat. Her fingers trembled as she pressed them to her lips, remembering the way Zephron's silver eyes had tracked her movements during the ritual. How Caspian's jaw had tightened when she'd refused to meet his emerald gaze. The knowing smile that had curved Daxon's mouth as if he could see straight through every wall she'd built. Connection to them thrummed through her veins like a living thing. Insistent, demanding, relentless. Just this once, she told herself. Just to take the edge off the constant ache that had been building since the moment the tie had snapped into place. Since the universe had decided without her consent that she belonged to 3 of the most powerful alphas in the Northern Mountain Realm. She was a scholar. She knew the histories. She'd spent years in the Manor's library, reading every text about pack bonds and sovereign bloodlines. She knew that triple bonds were rare, occurring perhaps once in a century. She knew that sovereign omegas were rarer still. Bloodlines thought extinct for generations. But she didn't know she was one. Nobody did. Not yet. The power slept inside her, sealed away by her mother's dying magic, waiting for conditions that had not yet been met. All she understood right now was need. Bone-deep, soul-aching need that made her skin too tight and her thoughts too scattered. Lixara closed her eyes and let herself sink into the fantasy she'd been fighting for 3 weeks. Zephron's hands on her skin, commanding and sure. The Alpha King, 6.5 feet of controlled power, looking at her like she was something precious. Caspian's mouth at her throat teeth, grazing the spot where a claiming mark would go. The warrior, all brutal efficiency and scarred muscle, his emerald gaze promising things that made her pulse race. And Daxon. Golden-eyed Daxon with his visions and knowing smiles telling her exactly what they would do to her if she stopped running. Her hand slipped lower. Heat flooded through her body in waves, that strange electric sensation from the tie she'd been trying desperately to ignore. The edge approached, inevitable. She was so close to the release she'd been chasing for hours alone in the dark. Her back arched. A soft moan escaped her lips. The door exploded inward. 3 massive figures filled the doorway, backlit by hallway torches, and Lixara's eyes flew open as pure terror shot through her arousal. Zephron stood in the center, 6 feet 5 inches of controlled fury. His gaze burned silver bright in the darkness, fixed on her exposed body with an intensity that made her skin burn. The Alpha King, leader of the Nightshade Pack, and according to the bonding ceremony 3 weeks ago, her mate. Beside him, Caspian, battle-scarred and brutal emerald stare, tracking the movement of her hand between her thighs with predatory focus. His nostrils flared, scenting her arousal thick and undeniable in the air. And Daxon, his knowing look carried dark satisfaction, all amber warmth and dangerous promise. The seer who'd probably seen this exact moment in one of his visions. "Don't stop on our account," Daxon said softly, voice like silk over steel. Lixara yanked her hand away as if burned, scrambling back against the headboard. She grabbed at the sheets, but Zephron's command stopped her cold. Number 1 word. Absolute authority layered beneath it, the alpha voice that made every omega instinct scream to obey immediately. She gritted her teeth against the compulsion. Her hands froze halfway to the sheet, trembling. "How dare you," she managed, though her voice shook. "This is my private chamber. You have no right." No right. Caspian's laugh was dark and dangerous. He moved into the room with predatory grace, closing the distance in 3 long strides. "You're our mate, Lixara. Everything about you is our right. I didn't agree to this." She forced herself to meet his eyes, even as her body betrayed her by growing wetter under their combined gazes. The bonding was political, required by the council. I never consented to being owned. Zephron's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those silver depths. Hunger, possession, and beneath it something that looked almost like pain. "You've been avoiding us for 3 weeks, he said, voice deceptively calm as he entered the room. The door swung shut with finality. "Refusing our summons, declining our invitations, hiding in your chambers." He moved closer. Lixara could smell him now, cedar and winter night, and something purely devastatingly alpha. Her body responded despite her mind's protest, heat pooling low in her belly. "And pleasuring yourself," Daxon added, taking his place on her other side, While thinking about us, Lixara's breath caught. I wasn't, don't lie. Zephron's hand shot out, gripping her chin firmly. We can feel it through the tie. Every fantasy, every forbidden thought. Every time you touched yourself these past 3 weeks, we knew. We felt your pleasure, your desire, your desperate need. Mortification flooded through her, hot and suffocating. They'd known. The whole time they'd known what she was doing in the dark. That ends tonight, Daxon said quietly. Too quietly. Caspian reached out his scarred hand, catching her wrist. He brought her fingers to his face and inhaled deeply. You smell like need, he said, voice rough. Like 3 weeks of denial and desperation. Like an Omega who's been trying to satisfy herself when she knows her fingers will never be enough. Let me go. But even Lixara could hear how breathless the words came out. No, Zephron said simply. You denied us. You broke the bonding covenant, and now you'll face the consequences. Fear spiked through her arousal. What consequences? The three alphas exchanged a look, silent communication passing between them, the kind that came from a lifetime of being brothers. When Zephron's gaze returned to her, there was something almost sad in it. You will be punished before the entire pack, he said, publicly disciplined for denying your alphas while defiling yourself with forbidden fantasies. The words stung like any blade. No, you can't. We can. Daxon's voice was soft and inexorable. And we will. You agreed to the bonding, Lixara. You stood before the council and the moon goddess. The covenant is absolute. I had a 30-day trial period. Lixara's voice rose desperate. She'd studied the ancient laws, knew every loophole. According to the covenant of sovereign rights, any Omega bonded without consent has 30 days to dissolve the union. I still have time. Check your calendar, little scholar, Caspian said, darkness in his smile. What day is it? Lixara's mind raced. The bonding had been on the new moon. She counted backwards, blood running cold. Day 31, Zephron confirmed. Your trial period ended at midnight. You're ours now, Lixara. Completely. Irrevocably. She wanted to argue, wanted to cite more laws, but the look in their eyes told her it would be useless. She'd miscounted. Been so focused on surviving each day that she'd lost track. Get dressed, Zephron commanded. Something simple. We want the pack to see exactly what we found you doing. I won't. You will. His alpha voice rolled over her, impossible to resist. Or we'll take you to the Grand Hall exactly as you are now, naked, smelling of shame. Choose Lixara. Her hands shook as she reached for the simple white dress. They'd planned this. Waited until her trial period expired, until she had no legal ground to stand on. She should have been smarter, should have tracked the days more carefully, and now she would pay for it in front of everyone. The walk to the Grand Hall felt like a death march. Zephron led the way, his massive frame cutting through darkness. Torches flickered and iron sconces casting dancing shadows. Caspian and Daxon flanked her close enough that she could feel their heat. Pack members emerged from their quarters as they passed. Curious eyes tracked their progression. Whispers followed in their wake. Is that the new Omega? The one who's been hiding 3 weeks and she still hasn't submitted. Heard they caught her doing something forbidden. Lixara kept her eyes down, bare feet silent on cold stone floors. She'd refused to wear shoes. A small rebellion, insignificant in the face of what was coming, but it was all she had left. The Grand Hall loomed ahead, massive doors already open. Torchlight spilled out and Lixara could hear the murmur of voices inside. How many witnesses would there be to her humiliation? Too many. The hall fell silent as they entered. Lixara forced herself to look up. The Grand Hall was enormous, vaulted ceiling, disappearing into shadows. Stone walls carved with pack history, generations of Nightshade alphas and their mates. At least 100 wolves filled the space. Pack members of every rank all gathered to witness her judgment. The council sat on their raised platform, 12 ancient wolves who governed with absolute authority, and in the center a clear space where she would kneel. Zephron's hand settled on the small of her back, guiding her forward. Not pushing, just inexorably directing her toward the center of the hall. Members of Nightshade Pack, Zephron's voice rang out commanding and clear. We are gathered to witness the discipline of our bonded Omega Lixara Moonshadow, who has violated the sacred covenant of mating. Lixara's knees hit cold stone before she realized she'd been commanded to kneel. The alpha voice impossible to resist. She gasped at the impact, pain shooting through her kneecaps, but didn't cry out. State the charges, one of the council elders demanded. Magistrate Theron, ancient and severe, his eyes milky white with blindness, but somehow seeing everything. Daxon stepped forward, his golden eyes finding hers. 3 weeks ago, Lixara accepted the mate bond with myself and my brothers. She stood before this council, before the moon goddess herself, and swore the sacred oaths. Yet from that moment until this one, she has denied us, refused our summons, avoided our presence, rejected every attempt at bonding. Is this true? Omega Magistrate Theron's blind gaze turned toward her. Her voice was steady when she answered. I fulfilled the ceremony as required. I never refused to honor the political alliance our bonding represents. But I claim my right to the 30-day trial period as is law, a right that expired at midnight, Zephyron interrupted, making tonight's transgression even more severe. Caspian circled her slowly, predator around prey. Warrior assessing an opponent. We found her in her chambers, he said, voice carrying through the silence. Door locked, lights dimmed, and her hands. He paused, letting the implication hang. Her hands were buried between her thighs, pleasuring herself while thinking forbidden thoughts about her alphas. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. This was it, the moment of complete humiliation. She was touching what belongs to us. Caspian continued, voice hard, seeking satisfaction from her own fingers rather than accepting what we could give her. Fantasies you had no right to witness. Lixara's head snapped up, fury overriding shame. The bond doesn't give you permission to invade my thoughts, my privacy. The bond gives us everything, Zephyron said quietly, but his voice carried like thunder. And you know it. You've studied the laws, little scholar. You know exactly what a mate bond means, what it requires, what it allows. He knelt before her, silver eyes level with hers. For a moment, the grand hall disappeared. For a moment, it was just the two of them. You are ours, Lixara, he said, something almost gentle in his voice. Every breath, every heartbeat, every trembling gasp of pleasure. It all belongs to us. And tonight you'll learn what happens when you try to deny that truth. Magistrate Theron's staff struck the stone floor 3 times, echoing like a death knell. The charges are proven. What punishment do you seek, Alphas? The 3 brothers exchanged another silent communication. Then Zephyron spoke, and his words changed everything. 4 days of discipline, he said. 4 nights of training. We will break her resistance not through force but through undeniable pleasure. We will make her crave what only we can provide. And when those 4 days end, she will either beg to complete the bond or we will release her from the covenant entirely and let her leave our pack forever. Shocked murmurs filled the hall. That wasn't standard punishment. You're giving me a choice, Lixara breathed, unable to believe it. We're giving you truth, Daxon said. 4 days to learn what the mate bond truly means, what we can give you, what you'll lose if you walk away. And at the end you choose, freely, completely. Stay and accept us or leave and never look back. It was more than she'd expected, more mercy than pack law required. But as Lixara looked at the 3 massive alphas surrounding her, she realized the trap. 4 days of systematic seduction. 4 nights of them proving their claim. She would never survive it with her resistance intact. This wasn't punishment. It was conquest. Does the Omega accept these terms? Magistrate Theron demanded. Lixara's mind raced. If she refused, they could invoke harsher penalties, could force complete submission without any choice at all. At least this way, she still had an escape. 4 days from now, she could walk away. 4 days. She could endure 4 days. I accept, she said, voice clear, despite the trembling in her hands. Zephyron's smile was predatory, knowing. Good, he said. Then let's begin. He stood, offering his hand. Lixara stared at it for a long moment before placing her palm in his. The contact sent sparks racing up her arm, the tie flaring to life, singing with satisfaction at this first voluntary contact in 3 weeks. Zephyron pulled her to her feet, then turned to address the pack. For 4 days, our mate will learn what it means to belong to the Nightshade brothers. She will learn obedience through pleasure, submission through choice, acceptance through undeniable satisfaction. And when those 4 days end, she will make her decision before this council, to stay or to go. He paused, hand tightening on hers. But I promise you this, by the time those 4 days end, she won't want to leave. She won't be able to imagine a life without us. She'll be so thoroughly addicted to what we give her that the thought of walking away will be unbearable. The arrogance, the absolute certainty, it should have enraged her. Instead, looking into those silver eyes, feeling the heat of his body so close, Lixara felt the first flicker of real fear. Because part of her believed him. Lixara's chambers had been transformed in the brief time she'd been gone. The door that had been locked now stood open. The locks had been removed entirely. She would have no privacy now, no sanctuary. The room had been lit with dozens of candles, casting everything in warm, flickering gold. Shadows danced across stone walls, across the floor, across the bed that had been... No. She breathed the word, taking a step back. She collided with Caspian's chest, solid and immovable. Yes, he said, hands settling on her shoulders. Not pushing, just present, grounding. In the center of her chamber, where her small bed had been, was something new, something massive. A bed built for 4 bodies instead of one with silk sheets the color of moonlight. For 4 days, you don't hide from us, Daxon said, moving to close the door. You don't run, you stay where we can see you, touch you, teach you. You can't expect me to share a bed with you. We expect nothing, Zephron said, approaching slowly. Except honesty, except you to stay when every instinct tells you to flee, except you to let us show you what you've been missing. He reached her hand, coming up to cup her face with surprising gentleness. We know you're afraid, Lixara, he said quietly. We can feel it through the tie. Fear and arousal and shame all tangled together. But you need to understand something. His thumb brushed across her lower lip. We don't want to break you. We want to free you from the walls you've built, from the lies you've told yourself, from the belief that strength means being alone. I'm not afraid, she lied. All 3 alphas smiled because they could feel the truth. 4 days, Zephron said again. Starting now. He released her and began removing his jacket. The formal coat of the Alpha King, heavy with emblems of authority. Beneath it, his shirt stretched across shoulders built for battle. Lixara's breath caught as he started on the buttons. What are you doing? Getting comfortable, Caspian said from behind her. She heard fabric rustle. It's late, time for sleep. I'm not sleeping in that bed with you. Then you'll stand all night, Daxon said, reasonably already down to his undershirt and sleep pants. Because we're not leaving, and we're certainly not letting you lock yourself away again. They were serious. They were actually going to sleep here in her room in that massive bed, the first night of 4. Lixara watched as Zephron stripped down to sleep pants, his torso a canvas of muscle and scars. Each mark told a story. Battles fought, challenges won. Caspian was even more marked, his warrior's body a testament to countless fights. The scars should have been ugly. Instead, they were beautiful in their brutality, proof of survival. Daxon was leaner but no less powerful, moving with dangerous grace that made her pulse quicken. They climbed into the bed, taking positions that left the center space open. Waiting, inviting. Last chance to choose the easy path, Zephron said, silver gaze gleaming in the candlelight. Come to bed willingly or we carry you. Either way, you're sleeping between us tonight. Lixara's hands clenched into fists. She could fight, could rage and scream and make this as difficult as possible. But what would it gain her? They were bigger, stronger, and they had the absolute backing of pack law. She'd already accepted the terms. 4 days, 4 nights. She climbed into the bed, stiffly, staying as far from all 3 of them as the space would allow. The sheets were silk against her skin, far finer than anything she'd owned before. The mattress molded to her body perfectly. And despite her intentions, despite her determination to stay awake and vigilant, exhaustion crashed over her the moment she laid down. 3 weeks of running, 3 weeks of broken sleep and constant vigilance, 3 weeks of fighting her own nature. It had taken its toll. Daxon moved first, his arm settling across her waist. Lixara stiffened, every muscle going tight, but his hold was loose, comforting rather than constraining. Then Caspian shifted closer, his warmth at her back. And finally Zephron, facing her in the darkness, close enough that she could feel his breath. Sleep, little scholar, he murmured. Tomorrow your real education begins. Lixara wanted to stay awake, wanted to remain vigilant, but surrounded by their heat, their scent, their steady breathing, her body betrayed her. Energy crackled through invisible threads, connecting them, purring with satisfaction. Finally having all 4 of them together, she fell asleep between 3 alphas, their bodies curved around hers like quotation marks around the most important word in a sentence. And for the first time in 3 weeks, she didn't dream of running. She dreamed of surrender. Morning came with golden light streaming through the windows and a strange warmth across her body. Lixara surfaced from sleep, slowly, consciousness returning in fragments. Heat surrounded her, comfort she hadn't felt in weeks. And she didn't hurt. For 3 weeks, she'd woken with tension headaches from the stress of fighting the bond. But now, her eyes flew open. Daxon's face was inches from hers, amber eyes already awake and watching. His arm was still around her waist, but now Caspian's leg was thrown over hers, pinning her lower half. And Zephron's hand rested on her hip, possessive even in sleep. No escape. Their bodies caged hers, gentle prison. Good morning, Daxon said softly, voice still rough with sleep. Sleep well? Lixara tried to move, but the moment she shifted, Caspian's arm tightened reflexively. Let me go, she said, proud when her voice didn't shake. Why Daxon's question was genuinely curious. You're comfortable. We're comfortable. Why fight what feels good? Because I don't want this. Your body disagrees. His eyes dropped to where her nipples had hardened beneath the thin fabric of her nightgown. Your scent disagrees. Only your stubborn mind keeps lying, Lixara, and we have 4 days to prove it wrong. Zephyrin stirred his gaze, opening immediately alert in the way of alphas who'd spent lifetimes protecting their pack. He assessed the situation in a heartbeat, a slow smile crossing his face. Morning already, his voice was rough with sleep, somehow even more devastating. Feels like we just closed our eyes. He stretched the movement, making muscles ripple, and Lixara tried very hard not to stare. Failed miserably. Heat flooded her cheeks. Caspian and Zephyrin said, amusement coloring his tone. Release our mate. She'll want to bathe before breakfast. The warrior grumbled something unintelligible but obeyed. His eyes opened to pin Lixara with an emerald stare. You stayed, he observed. I was pinned, she corrected quickly. You could have shifted, Caspian pointed out. Could have gone wolf and slipped away. But you didn't, because part of you wanted to stay right here exactly where you belong. Had she, Lixara, searched her memories of the night, there had been moments of waking brief surfaces to consciousness, and each time fought to escape, no. She'd felt the warmth, the safety, and drifted back to sleep. Content, no. I was exhausted, she said firmly, nothing more. Whatever helps you sleep, Scholar Daxon released her, rolling away to give her space. But you have 15 minutes to bathe and dress. Then we eat together as a bonded unit should. Lixara fled to the bathing room, closing the door with more force than necessary. Her reflection in the polished silver mirror showed exactly what she'd feared. Her hair was mussed from sleep, dark waves tangled. Her lips were slightly swollen from breathing in their scent all night. Her eyes were bright pupils, dilated cheeks flushed with something that looked too much like satisfaction. She looked like someone who'd spent the night wrapped in her mate's arms, someone who'd enjoyed it. The bath did nothing to cool the heat in her blood. If anything, the warm water heightened every sensation. Each inch of skin tingled with memory. Caspian's hand on her hip, Daxon's breath ghosting across her neck, Zephyrin's presence filling the space around her. By the time she emerged dressed in simple leggings and an oversized sweater that felt like armor, the brothers were waiting. They dressed as well, though all three looked impossibly good even in casual clothing. Zephyrin in dark trousers and a shirt that did nothing to hide the breadth of his shoulders. Caspian in warrior's gear. Daxon in soft earth tones that made his golden eyes seem to glow. Breakfast was laid out in the sitting room. Fresh bread, still warm from the ovens. Honey that caught the morning light like liquid gold fruit from the orchards, aged cheese. The kind of morning meal she'd never bothered with when living alone. They'd thought of everything, Zephyrin commanded, gesturing to the chair between his seat and Daxon's. Lixara sat, picked at the food, tried to ignore how aware she was of their proximity. Today's lesson is simple, Zephyrin said conversationally as he broke bread. You'll spend the day with us. See how we work, how we lead, how we care for the pack. No punishment, no discipline, just observation. And tonight, Lixara couldn't help asking, Caspian's smile was slow and dangerous. Tonight we begin teaching you about pleasure. Real pleasure. The kind your fingers could never provide. Heat flooded through her at the promise in his voice. I won't, you will, Daxon interrupted gently. Because you're curious. Because despite your fear and your pride, you want to know. Want to understand why your body responds to us the way it does. He wasn't wrong. Moon Goddess, help her. He wasn't wrong. The day passed in a blur that felt both endless and far too short. Lixara followed them through their daily routines, watching as the Nightshade brothers governed their pack with a combination of strength and fairness that surprised her. First, Zephyr's morning court. The Grand Hall transformed from a place of judgment to a place of justice. Pack members brought disputes, concerns, requests. Zephyrin listened to each with focused attention, asked questions that cut to the heart of matters, made decisions that considered not just law, but compassion. This is what it means to lead, he said quietly as they left, his hand settling on the small of her back. Not dominance for its own sake, but service, protection. Next, Caspian's training grounds. Warriors drilled in the courtyard, practicing forms centuries old. But it wasn't mindless brutality. Caspian corrected stances with patience, demonstrated techniques with precision. Strength without control is just violence, he explained, blocking a strike from a young alpha with effortless grace. We train not to conquer, but to protect. Finally, Daxon's patrol of the pack lands. They walked the boundaries, checked the wards. Daxon's visions guided their path. Seeing the future isn't about knowing everything, Daxon said as they paused at a viewpoint. It's about knowing where to look, which threads to pull to weave a better tapestry. The goddess shows me possibilities, not certainties. And everywhere they went, pack members watched. Saw Lixara beside the brothers. Saw how they made space for her, included her, asked her opinion. Saw how Zephron's hand would find hers as they walked. How Caspian positioned himself between her and any perceived threat. How Daxon anticipated her needs before she voiced them. They were courting her, publicly, deliberately, showing the pack and showing her what life could be if she stopped fighting. It was more dangerous than any punishment could have been. By evening, Lixara was exhausted and confused. They hadn't touched her beyond casual contact, hadn't pushed or demanded, just included her as if she belonged. As if she was already Luna, already their mate in truth rather than just in name, as if her choice had already been made. Dinner was quiet, just the four of them. The massive bed loomed in the background like a promise or a threat. Time for your first real lesson, Zephron said when the plates were cleared. Lixara's heart hammered. What kind of lesson? Trust, he said simply. Before anything else, you need to learn to trust us. Trust that we won't hurt you. Won't take more than you're willing to give. He stood, offering his hand. Come here, Lixara. She shouldn't. Every instinct screamed to refuse. But Daxon's words from breakfast echoed in her mind. You're curious, she was. Moon goddess, help her, she was. Lixara placed her hand in Zephron's and let him pull her to her feet. Let him lead her to the bed. Let him sit on the edge and position her between his spread thighs, his body heat enveloping her. Caspian and Daxon took positions on either side, close, but not touching, creating a circle of alpha presence that made her skin tingle and her breath come short. Just sensation, Zephron, murmured, breath warm against her ear. Just teaching your body what it's been craving. No expectations, no demands, just pleasure. If you want us to stop, say the word and we stop immediately. Understood. Lixara nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in her throat. Good girl. His hands settled on her waist, thumbs brushing against the strip of skin where her sweater had ridden up. The touch was electric, lightning racing up her spine, fire pooling low in her belly. Lixara gasped. The tie amplifies everything, he explained, voice low and dark. Every touch, every sensation. That's why your fingers were never enough. They couldn't trigger the connection the way we can. His hand slid higher, barely grazing the underside of her breast through the sweater. Lixara's head fell back, a whimper escaping. That's it, Daxon encouraged from her left, his own hand settling on her thighs, warm and steady. Don't fight it, just feel. Caspian's hand settled on her lower back, steadying her as Zephron's touch grew bolder. His palms cupped her breasts, now thumbs circling over hardened peaks through fabric. Energy crackled along invisible threads between them. Violet light she couldn't see but could feel pulsing with every heartbeat. Please, she gasped, not even sure what she was begging for. Please, what Zephron's voice was rough, strained. Please stop, or please more. I can't. You can. His hand stilled, giving her space to think. Tell us, Lixara, what do you want? The words stuck in her throat. Admitting want meant admitting defeat, meant acknowledging they were right about everything. But her body didn't care about pride. Her body knew what it needed. More, she whispered the word barely audible. Please, more. Zephron's answering growl was pure satisfaction vibrating through his chest. His hands resumed their exploration, and this time Caspian and Daxon joined in. Hands on her thighs, her back, her neck. Never intrusive, never overwhelming, but constant, present, worshipful. They touched her through her clothes until she was trembling, until she was making sounds she'd never heard herself make, until the pleasure built so high she thought she might shatter. And then, just as the climax was building to something inevitable and enormous, they stopped. Lixara's eyes flew open, protest on her lips. Not tonight, Zephron said, though she could see the strain in his expression. Tonight was about trust, about showing you we can give pleasure without taking, that we have control even when you're falling apart in our arms. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, achingly gentle. Tomorrow we'll go further. They put her to bed between them again, her body still humming with unfulfilled need. But this time when she drifted to sleep, it wasn't with resentment. It was with anticipation. Day 2 dawned with the same warm tangle of limbs, but Lixara didn't startle this time. Didn't fight. Just opened her eyes to find Daxon watching her again, that small knowing smile on his lips. You're getting used to us, he observed. Maybe she was. Maybe that was the most terrifying part. After breakfast, they brought her to the bed again. But this time Caspian produced something from a drawer. a length of silk soft and dark as midnight. "What is that?" Lixara asked, though she could guess. A blindfold, Caspian said, voice rough. "Tonight you learn to feel without seeing. To trust us when you can't anticipate what's coming next." Her heart raced. "I'm not sure." Safe word, Zephron interrupted. "Choose one now. One word that stops everything immediately." Lixara thought for a moment. "Mercy." "Good." He cupped her face. "Can you trust us this much, Lixara? Can you surrender your sight and let us show you?" Could she? 2 days ago, the answer would have been an absolute no. But now, after them, keeping every promise, respecting every boundary. Yes, she breathed. The blindfold settled over her eyes and the world went dark. Her other senses immediately sharpened. She could hear their breathing smell, their distinct scents mixing in the air. Cedar and winter storms from Zephron. Smoke and spiced wine from Caspian. Earth and rain from Daxon. She could feel the slight shifts in air pressure as they moved around her, circling like wolves around prey. "Lie back." Daxon's voice came from somewhere to her left. She obeyed without thinking, sinking into the silk sheets, vulnerable and blind, and somehow safe despite both. Hands settled on her ankles, spreading her legs slightly. Not far, not uncomfortable, just open. Exposed. "We're going to touch you," Zephron said from somewhere above. "And you're going to tell us how it feels. Don't hold back. Just honest reactions." A touch on her collarbone, feather light tracing down to the valley between her breasts. "How does that feel?" "Good," Lixara whispered. "Just good, like lightning," she admitted. "Like fire. Better." Fingers on her ribs now, mapping every curve through the thin fabric of her nightgown. And this ticklish, but good. Still good. They learned her body slowly, methodically. Every sensitive spot, every place that made her gasp or arch or moan. The inside of her wrist, the hollow of her throat, the soft skin behind her knee, the curve of her hip. And through it all, Lixara found herself obeying Zephron's command, voicing every sensation, every flicker of pleasure, every spike of need. Being honest in a way she'd never been with anyone, not even herself. When hands finally cupped her breasts, thumbs circling nipples through silk, she arched into the touch with a cry. "Please, what do you need?" Caspian's voice rough and strained. "More. Touch me. I need." "We know what you need." Daxon's hands on her thighs now, pushing the nightgown up slowly. "And we're going to give it to you. But first you're going to tell us exactly how every touch makes you feel." They continued the exquisite torture, touching her through fabric, then skin on skin, learning every sound she made. Building the pleasure higher and higher until she was sobbing with need, begging in words that made no sense. When they finally removed the blindfold, her vision swam with tears she hadn't realized she'd shed. Not sad tears, overwhelmed tears, grateful tears. "Tomorrow," Zephrona said, voice thick with restrained desire, "we teach you about giving, about how pleasure flows both ways." Lixara nodded, unable to speak. They held her that night, 3 massive bodies curved around hers protectively. And as she drifted off, Lixara realized something terrifying. She was only on day 2, and she was already starting to crave them, already starting to need this. 2 more days. She had 2 more days to resist the inevitable. But as Daxon's knowing smile suggested, Lixara wondered if resistance had ever really been possible, or if from the moment they'd caught her in the dark, her fate had already been sealed. Day 3 arrived differently. Lixara woke to find herself alone in the massive bed, though the sheets still held the warmth of 3 bodies. A note rested on Zephron's pillow, written in his precise hand. "Training room. When you're ready. No rush." The consideration in those 3 words made something in her chest tighten painfully. They could have commanded her presence. Instead, they gave her space. Time. Choice. It was more dangerous than any order could have been. Lixara found them in the Eastern Training Hall, a massive space carved from stone where warriors hone their skills. But this morning, the brothers were alone, moving through combat forms with a synchronization that spoke of decades fighting side by side. She stopped in the doorway, unable to look away. Morning light caught sweat-slicked muscle as they moved bare-chested and focused, and they were devastating in a way that made her chest ache. Zephron moved like power, contained every strike precise and lethal. His body was a weapon honed by years of leadership, of protecting his pack. Silver gaze focused with absolute concentration as he flowed from one form to the next. Caspian was brutal efficiency incarnate. His scarred body told stories of countless battles, each mark earned, protecting those weaker than himself. He fought like violence given purpose, like controlled destruction. And Daxon, deceptively graceful, his movements hiding lethal intent beneath flowing forms. The seer fought like he could see each strike before it came because he could. Golden eyes tracking futures that hadn't happened yet. They were beautiful, terrifying, hers. The thought came unbidden, and Lixara caught her breath at the possessiveness in it. When had she started thinking of them as hers, instead of herself as theirs? Daxon's golden eyes found her first. He stilled mid-strike, a smile crossing his face. She watches. The other two turned, and the combined weight of their gazes made heat pool low in her belly. Zephyrin crossed to her in 3 long strides. "Good morning, little scholar." His hand cupped her face thumb, brushing her cheekbone with casual intimacy. "Sleep well without us." "No," she admitted before she could stop herself. His smile was triumphant, satisfied knowing. "Good. Today you learned to touch us," Caspian said, moving to her other side. "To give the pleasure you've been receiving. To understand that this flows both ways." Lixara's heart hammered. "I don't know how." "We'll teach you," Daxon assured her, "just like we've taught you everything else. With patience. With care." They led her to a private chamber off the training hall. Soft mats covered the floor, and morning light streamed through high windows, creating pools of gold on woven fabric. Zephyrin sat on the mats, gesturing for her to join him. "Start simple. Touch me anywhere you want. Explore." Lixara knelt before him, hands trembling slightly. She'd never touched a man this way. Never allowed herself to want to. But now, with permission granted and curiosity burning through her resistance, she reached out. Her fingers settled on his shoulder first, feeling smooth skin over hard muscle. She traced the line of his collarbone, fascinated by the contrast between his strength and her softness. His breathing changed, deepened, and she looked up to find his silver eyes dark with desire, pupils blown wide. "Keep going," he encouraged, voice rough. She grew bolder, mapped the planes of his chest, feeling his heart thunder beneath her palm. Traced the ridges of his abdomen, found scars that told stories of battles won, and traced each one with gentle fingers. And with each touch, she felt power surge between them. Felt his pleasure echo through the connection like a second heartbeat. It was intoxicating, addictive, having this kind of power over someone so strong. "Our turn," Caspian murmured from behind her, hands settling on her waist. Lixara startled but didn't pull away. Couldn't pull away. Not when Zephron's eyes held hers with such intensity. "You touch Zephron," Caspian explained, breath warm against her ear. "We touch you." Fair exchange. His hands slid beneath her shirt palms, warm against bare skin. Daxon knelt beside them, fingers tangling in her hair, tilting her head back for a kiss that stole her breath. This was the lesson: give and receive. Pleasure flowing in all directions. Power arcing between them. Electric and undeniable. Lixara's hands continued their exploration of Zephron's body, growing bolder, as Caspian's hands mapped her ribs, her waist, the curve of her breasts, as Daxon kissed her like she was air and he was drowning. They brought her to the edge 3 times that morning. 3 times they pulled her back, teaching her anticipation, teaching her to trust that the pleasure would come when they decided. And when they finally let her shatter, it was Zephron's name on her lips and their hands holding her together as she flew apart. Afterward, lying boneless between them on the soft mat, sunlight painting gold across intertwined limbs, Lixara realized the terrible truth. She was already addicted, already craving them more than air, more than pride, more than the independence she'd fought so hard to maintain. 3 days. It had only taken 3 days to completely unravel her resistance. That afternoon, Zephron made an announcement that changed everything. "The pack needs to see you beside us," he said, as they walked back toward the manor. "Not as a prisoner or a conquest, but as our mate, our equal, our Luna-to-be." Luna, the title sent a shiver through her. Leader, partner, queen of the Nightshade pack. "I'm not ready for that," Lixara protested. "You are." Daxon's certainty was absolute. "You've been ready from the moment you stepped into this pack. You just didn't know it yet." They dressed her in deep purple silk, the color rich and royal, making her pale skin seem to glow. The gown hugged her curves and flowed like water, making her look regal in a way her simple scholar's clothes never had. When Lixara looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Her eyes were brighter, lit from within by 3 days of pleasure and connection. Her skin glowed with satisfaction. Her hair fell in dark waves around her shoulders, and though there were no claiming marks visible yet, something about her screamed claimed. She looked possessed, utterly theirs, and for the first time she didn't hate it. The pack gathered in the great courtyard for the weekly assembly. Hundreds of wolves, all ranks and ages, come to hear their Alpha King speak. Lixara stood beside Zephron on the raised platform, Caspian and Daxon flanking her other side. Every eye in the courtyard was on her. Zephron's hand found hers, fingers lacing through hers publicly, claiming her before everyone. "This is Lixara Moonshadow," he announced, voice carrying across the assembled pack. "My mate, my Luna, and from this day forward she speaks with my authority." Shocked murmurs rippled through the crowd. Giving her authority after only 3 days was unprecedented. But Zephron's expression broke no argument. "She will sit on council meetings. She will hear disputes. She will help guide this pack into our future. Any who question her position, question me. Is that understood?" The pack's acknowledgement came in waves, some eager, some uncertain, some resentful. Lixara could feel their judgment, their curiosity pressing against her like a physical weight. But she could also feel something else. Power rising from somewhere deep inside her, responding to the recognition of her status. Responding to being seen, being claimed, being named as Luna. Before the entire pack, her eyes started to tingle. For a moment, violet light flickered at the edges of her vision there and gone so quickly she thought she'd imagined it. Zephron's hand tightened fractionally on hers. He'd felt something through the tie. A surge of power, brief but undeniable. But before either could react, a woman stepped forward from the crowd. Beautiful and cold, with platinum hair that caught the afternoon sun like spun silver, and ice-blue eyes that held nothing but contempt. She wore the colors of high nobility. Vespera Thornbrook, one of the wealthiest alphas in the territory, and according to gossip, Zephron's intended mate, before the council had arranged his bonding to Lixara instead. My King Vespera's voice carried across the courtyard, dripping with false courtesy. "Forgive my boldness, but surely you move too quickly. 3 days is hardly enough time to determine if this Omega is suitable for the Luna position." Zephron's hand tightened on Lixara's. "I determine what is suitable for my pack, Lady Thornbrook. Not you." Of course, Vesper's smile was sharp as a blade, dangerous as winter ice. "I merely worry that you've been distracted by the mate bond. Surely someone of more appropriate breeding, more experience in leadership." She paused, eyes raking over Lixara with undisguised disdain. "More like you would be better suited to stand beside the Nightshade throne." Caspian's voice was dangerous, a growl building beneath words. "Is that what you're suggesting, Lady Thornbrook, that our mate is unsuitable because she wasn't born to nobility?" Vespera's mask slipped for just a moment, showing the rage beneath. "I suggest nothing. I merely observe that placing an untried Omega in a position of power seems unwise. Dangerous, even." Lixara felt the insult, the old familiar words that had followed her through childhood. Untried, unsuitable, less than. But something was shifting inside her. That strange power responding to the challenge, to the threat. 3 weeks ago, those words would have destroyed her, would have confirmed every fear. But 3 days with her mates had changed something fundamental. They saw her, valued her mind, her courage, her stubborn pride, made her feel powerful in ways that had nothing to do with Omega or Alpha or any hierarchy she'd been taught to accept. And she would not let this woman diminish what they'd built. "You question my fitness to lead." Lixara stepped forward, releasing Zephron's hand. Her voice rang out clear and strong, carrying across the courtyard with authority she didn't know she possessed. "Then question my knowledge of pack law. Question my understanding of alliance politics. Question my strategic analysis of our territory's vulnerabilities." She descended the platform steps, moving toward Vespera with confidence that seemed to come from somewhere outside herself. From the bond, from her mate's faith in her, from something deeper. But don't question my bond, don't question my mate's judgment, and certainly don't mistake kindness for weakness. Vespera's eyes narrowed. Brave words for someone who's only been in this pack for 3 weeks. "What do you know of leadership, of sacrifice, of the burden of power?" "I know that true power doesn't need to tear others down to build itself up," Lixara said quietly. "I know that leadership means protecting the vulnerable, not using them as pawns. And I know that you're not concerned about the pack's welfare. You're concerned about losing something you never actually had." The courtyard had gone deathly silent. Every wolf watching the confrontation between the new Luna and the highborn Alpha who clearly wanted her position. Vespera took a step closer, her Alpha aura pressing against Lixara in a clear dominance play. "You have no idea what you're talking about, little Omega. The council had other plans before you arrived. Better plans. Plans that would have secured this pack's future through proper bloodlines." Before she could finish, a howl split the air. The alarm, the border warning, attack. Chaos erupted instantly. Warriors shifted mid-stride for rippling across skin as they raced toward the northern border. Civilians fled towards secure buildings. The peaceful assembly transformed into war mobilization in seconds. Zephyrin grabbed Lixara's arm. Inside. Now, you stay protected until... No, the word came out with more force than she'd intended. If they're attacking because of me, I need to be there. Need to understand what's happening. Absolutely not, Caspian snarled, already in combat mode. You're untrained in combat. You'd be a liability. The words stung, but they were true. Lixara had never learned to fight, never shifted in battle. Then teach me, she demanded. Quickly. Whatever I need to know to not be a liability. But don't lock me away while you fight battles that are about me. The three brothers exchanged one of their silent communications. Finally, Zephyrin nodded sharply. Daxon stays with her. Teaches her basic defense. Caspian and I lead the warriors. If anyone gets past us, you know what to do. Daxon finished, his smile grim. Protect our mate with my life. Already planned on it. They moved as one, racing toward the border. Lixara could hear the sounds of battle now, snarls and screams carrying on the wind. Whatever was attacking it was big, organized, planned. Daxon pulled her behind a defensive barrier, hands already shifting to show her basic blocking techniques. Keep your center low. Use their momentum against them. If something gets through, aim for throats and eyes. No honor in survival, little scholar. Only living to see tomorrow. Lixara tried to focus on his instructions, but her attention kept pulling toward the battle, toward where Zephyrin and Caspian fought with devastating efficiency, moving in perfect sync. They were incredible. Lethal poetry in motion. Alpha Kings defending their territory with tooth and claw and centuries of warrior instinct. And the enemy wolves? There was something wrong with them. Their eyes glowed red instead of the normal gold of shifted wolves. Their movements were erratic, almost rabid. They fought without fear, without pain, throwing themselves at the Nightshade warriors with suicidal intensity. Blood moss, Daxon breathed, his golden eyes wide. Someone's drugged them with blood moss. Makes them fearless, nearly immune to pain, and absolutely loyal to whoever controls the supply. Who would do that? Lixara asked, though dread was already building. Someone with resources, Daxon said grimly. Someone who wanted to create chaos. Make a statement. Test our defenses and see how we'd react to a threat against you specifically. His golden eyes found hers, vision sight activating, seeing futures that branched like lightning across probability. Someone who wanted to prove you need protection. That you're vulnerable. Before Lixara could respond, a massive wolf broke through the defensive line. Red eyes fixed on her with singular focus. Target acquired. Daxon shifted in a heartbeat, his wolf form massive and golden brown, sleek with power. He met the attacker mid-leap, and the two wolves went down in a snarling mass of fur and fangs. Lixara pressed back against the barrier, hard hammering. She should shift, should help. But she'd never shifted in combat, barely shifted at all. The red-eyed wolf threw Daxon aside with unnatural strength, slamming him into a stone wall. The golden alpha went down hard, stunned, not moving, and the enemy wolf turned toward Lixara. Terror froze her in place. This was it. She was going to die because she was too weak, too untrained, too useless to defend herself. No. The thought came from somewhere deep inside. Not useless. Never useless. Just untapped. Unawakened. The wolf lunged. Lixara's eyes flared violet. Power exploded outward from her in a wave of pure energy. The attacking wolf froze midair, suspended by invisible force. Its red eyes went wide with shock and terror, and then impossibly it dropped to the ground, whimpering, submitting to her. Lixara stared at her hands, at the violet light still crackling around her fingers like lightning given form. What was happening? What was this? The battle was ending. The drugged wolves were fleeing or surrendering, their red eyes fading to normal, as whatever controlled them wore off or broke under the weight of her power. Zephyrin and Caspian raced back towards her, eyes widening when they saw the scene. The wolf prostrate at her feet, the violet energy surrounding her like a corona. Lixara, Zephyrin breathed. Your eyes. She could feel them. Glowing, burning with power she'd never known she possessed. And on her skin, silver marks were appearing. Ancient symbols rising from within like tattoos written in starlight, forming intricate patterns that spoke of bloodlines thought extinct. Sovereign Daxon whispered, pulling himself upright, vision sight active and glowing. She's sovereign bloodline, the last of the moon goddesses chosen. That's why the council was so eager to bind her. That's why they hid her identity. He looked at her with something like awe. She's not just an Omega, she's royalty. The world spun. Lixara reached for something to steady herself and found Caspian's arms catching her. I don't understand, she managed. I'm nobody, just a scholar. Just the most powerful Omega born in 3 centuries, a new voice said. Lixara turned to see Vespera standing at the edge of the courtyard, but her expression wasn't triumphant. It was stricken, genuinely shocked. I didn't know, Vespera said quietly, all pretense dropped. When Councilman Thaddeus asked me to challenge you when he said the bond should be questioned, I didn't know what you were, what you carried. He told me you were just a political pawn, someone unsuitable who needed to be removed so proper alliances could be made. She looked at the silver marks glowing on Lixara's skin, at the violet eyes. If I had known, her voice trailed off. Thaddeus is behind this, Daxon said, his visions confirming what they all suspected. The attack. The drugged wolves. He's been manipulating us all, using Vespera, using the council's authority, building towards something. Why, Lixara asked. What does he gain? Control of you, Zephyron said grimly. Sovereign Omegas can command any wolf. Alpha, Beta, Omega, it doesn't matter. Your word becomes law to any shifter who hears it. With that kind of power, you could unite or destroy entire territories. Or, Caspian added darkly, someone could use you as a weapon, if they controlled you. If they broke your bond to us and formed a new one to someone more malleable. The implications made Lixara sick. She'd been a pawn her whole life and never known it. Hidden away, kept weak and ignorant, all so she could be controlled when her power finally manifested. But before they could discuss it further, Lixara felt something else. A wave of heat rolling through her body. Her skin flushed. Her breathing quickened. Her vision swam. No, not now. Not when they needed her, clear-headed and strong. But her body didn't care about timing, didn't care about threats or politics or the fact that she was standing in a courtyard full of witnesses. Her first heat was coming, triggered by the stress of battle and the surge of power and the bond finally recognizing what she was. And it was coming fast. Zephyrin, she gasped, reaching for him. Something's wrong. I feel all three brothers went rigid, nostrils flaring as they scented it. The sweet, overwhelming scent of an Omega going into heat, made 1,000 times more potent by her sovereign bloodline, by the power crackling through her veins. Get her inside, Caspian ordered. Now, before every unmated wolf in the territory goes insane. They moved quickly, surrounding her protectively as they raced back toward the manor. Lixara could barely walk, the heat consuming her from the inside out. Every nerve ending was on fire. Every cell in her body screamed for her mates for completion. This was worse than anything she'd imagined. This was agony and ecstasy wound together until she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. This was her body demanding what she'd been denying for 3 weeks, and there was no fighting it anymore. They got her to the chambers and locked the door. Lixara collapsed onto the bed, her whole body trembling with need that went beyond anything she'd imagined. Fire devoured her from inside out, merciless, every cell screaming, every nerve ablaze. This wasn't just physical desire. This was biological imperative demanding completion. Zephyrin knelt beside the bed, his face tight with concern and barely restrained desire. Lixara, look at me. Focus. She could barely see him through the haze. Make it stop, please. I can't. It's too much. We can help, he said, voice strained. We can ease this, but only if you choose it. Only if you want us to complete the bond. His silver eyes held hers. This is permanent, little scholar. Once we claim you in heat, there's no going back. No breaking it. No changing your mind. Through the pain and the heat and the desperate need, Lixara understood what they were offering. Freedom. Even now, even when her body was demanding them, they would walk away if she asked, because they'd meant every word, her choice, always. And in that moment, Lixara finally understood. This wasn't surrender. Wasn't defeat. Wasn't giving up her independence or her strength. This was choosing. Actively, deliberately choosing them. Choosing to let herself be loved and claimed and protected, not because she was weak, but because she was strong enough to accept it. Stay, she whispered. Please, I choose you, all of you. I choose this. Zephyr's eyes flared silver. You're sure I'm sure. Lixara reached for him for all of them. I've been sure since day 3. Maybe since the moment you caught me. I've just been too afraid to admit it. No more fear, Caspian promised, hands already moving to her overheated skin. No more running. From this moment on, you're ours and we're yours, forever. What followed was hours of intensity that Lixara would never find words to describe. Zephyrin claimed her first. Gentle despite the heat, methodical despite his own need. His silver eyes never left hers as he entered her, carefully checking, constantly making sure she was ready, that she wanted this, that every moment was her choice. When he sealed the first bond with his claiming bite at her throat, violet light exploded through the chamber. Their souls fused the tie, becoming unbreakable. She could feel him now, not just emotions, but thoughts, intentions, his very presence woven into her soul. Then Caspian. Rougher, more intense, his warrior's passion balanced by surprising tenderness. His emerald eyes blazed as he claimed her as his teeth marked the other side of her throat. The second bond sealed and the power doubled, stabilized. Finally Daxon. Slow, sensual, worshipful. His golden eyes seeing futures where they were together, always together. His claiming bite completed the triangle on her throat. The triple bond sealed fully unprecedented in pack history. The sovereign marks spread across her skin in intricate patterns. Her eyes stayed violet even as the heat finally faded. And the connection, it was complete. Unbreakable. She could feel them constantly now, their thoughts and emotions as much a part of her as her own heartbeat. When dawn finally came, Lixara lay between her three mates, completely claimed and utterly satisfied. They held her through the aftershocks, murmuring praise and love and promises of forever. In the quiet after Daxon brought her something, a journal, leather-bound and worn. Found this in the confiscated materials from Thaddeus's quarters. Your mother's. Lixara opened it with trembling hands, her mother's handwriting. Stories of childhood, explanations of power sealed with a mother's dying magic. The final page held a letter. My dearest Lixara, your power will only awaken when you find true mates, those willing to die for you. The moon goddess will know them. Trust her. Trust yourself. Trust your bond. She closed the journal, tears streaming. She knew. All along she knew you would find me. But their peace was short-lived. An urgent knock shattered the morning quiet. A messenger pale and trembling. My king, the council demands your presence. Someone has arrived claiming right to the sovereign Omega, claiming to be her closest living relative. Lixara's blood ran cold. Impossible. He has proof. Documents, bloodline records. Says the mate bond is invalid because she wasn't of legal age without family approval. He's demanding custody. Zephyrin's voice was deadly. Malachar Moonshadow, Alpha Supreme of the Eastern Territories. He says he's Lixara's uncle, her father's brother, and he's come to take her home. The council chambers had never felt so oppressive. 12 ancient wolves sat in judgment, while hundreds witnessed from the galleries. And standing before them, radiating menace, was Malachar Moonshadow. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver hair and violet eyes identical to Lixara's. The uncle who'd murdered her parents 16 years ago, come to claim what he believed was his. Niece, he said, smiling. How you've grown. You murdered them, Lixara said, voice steady despite the rage. My mother, my father, you killed them and took their territory. I liberated that territory from weak leadership, Malachar corrected. Your father believed in equality, giving Omega's rights. He was destroying our bloodline's legacy. I simply corrected his mistakes. Councilman Thaddeus rose satisfaction in his voice. Alpha Malachar has presented documents sealed by the Moon Priestess herself. According to pack law, he has legal guardianship until Lixara reaches majority at 25. She's mated. Zephyrin's voice was ice and iron. Bonded. Claimed. The law is clear. Is it? Malachar's smile widened. When the Omega was only 21 when bonded. When she had no legal guardian to approve the match. By law, the bond is invalid. Never, Lixara breathed. Power crackled along her skin, violet light dancing across sovereign marks. Elder Ravenna interrupted. Unless the sovereign herself invokes the right of challenge. Ancient law allows any sovereign to contest family claims through trial of power. She's untrained, Malachar scoffed. Challenge would be suicide. Then you should have no concern accepting it, Lixara said, voice carrying sovereign power. I invoke the right of challenge. Your claim against mine. Your power against mine. To submission or death. The chamber erupted, but Malachar's eyes never left hers. I accept. The blood moon rose over the ancient arena. Every wolf in the territory gathered to witness. Lixara stood in simple white sovereign marks glowing. Malachar wore black armor, confident and deadly. The three alphas were chained in silver at the arena's edge, forced to watch, able only to provide anchor through the bond. The challenge began. Malachar struck first with pure sovereign command. Kneel. The word crashed over Lixara like a wave. Her knees buckled, body responding to the layered alpha command. But she pressed her hands against the ancient stone and felt generations of her bloodline who'd faced impossible odds. No, she whispered. Then louder. Her own sovereign voice overrode his command. She stood shakily but triumphant. Malachar's eyes widened. Then he played his cruelest card. Sleep, he commanded the three alphas. Their eyes rolled back. Bodies went limp. Her anchors torn away. Without your mates to stabilize you, Malachar taunted, you're nothing. But Lixara remembered everything they'd taught her. She wasn't nothing. She was sovereign. She was chosen. She was loved. You're right, she said. I am frightened. I am young. But I'm not nothing. Violet light exploded outward. Not just power, truth. I am Lixara Moonshadow, daughter of murdered sovereigns, mate to 3 alphas who taught me that strength comes in many forms. And I am done being afraid. She stepped forward. You killed them because you were jealous, because they were loved and you were feared, because you could never measure up. Then she spoke the word that changed everything. Truth. Reality bent. Malachar's mouth opened and words spilled out he never intended. I killed them because I was jealous, because my brother was loved and I was feared, because I deserved to rule and they deserved to die for being better than me. The confession rang across the arena. Undeniable. Damning. Challenge 1, Lixara said. Malachar Moonshadow is stripped of all titles. Exiled to the wastelands, alone. She looked at her uncle. True power isn't domination, it's mercy. In choosing to be better than those who wronged you. The pack's howl of acceptance shook the foundations. 1 week later, the grand hall transformed from judgment place to celebration. Lixara walked in wearing deep violet sovereign marks glowing softly, her 3 mates beside her. Not behind, not ahead, beside, equal. 300 wolves witnessed history. The first triple Luna coronation. The first sovereign to share power instead of hoard it. Magistrate Theron placed the ancient crown on her head. Lixara Nightshade Sovereign, Luna-bonded mate, queen of the Nightshade Pack. Power surged visibly violet light, connecting her to each alpha. The pack felt it, the weight of true leadership, the promise of better days. 6 months later. Lixara stood on the balcony overlooking Packlands, hand resting on her swollen belly, where twin heartbeats fluttered. Zephyrin and Caspian flanked her protectively. Daxon wrapped arms around from behind. Our heir, Zephyron murmured, hand over hers. Our legacy, Caspian agreed. Our future, Daxon whispered. The pack thrived below. Rescued Omegas had found homes. The council respected their Luna. Territories were at peace. New laws protected the vulnerable. Voices given to the previously silenced. Lixara had been rejected, cast aside, left to die. Now she was queen. Mated to 3 Alpha Kings, carrying future leaders. Living proof that the worst moments lead to the greatest triumphs. I love you, she whispered to all 3. We love you too, they replied in unison. Forever. The blood moon rose again, but this time it represented not challenge, but completion. 4 figures on the balcony pack lands, stretching below. Destiny fulfilled. They caught me pleasuring myself in the dark. Lixara thought, smiling. 3 Alpha Kings who became my mates, my anchors, my equals. They thought punishment would break me. I thought submission would kill me. We were both wrong. What I found wasn't captivity, it was freedom. Freedom to choose, to love, to lead, to become everything I was meant to be. My mother was right. I was never broken. I was waiting to be caught, William, so I could finally soar. She looked at her mates, at the pack below, at the twins growing inside her, and she knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged, forever.